Doesn't matter which way you swing it, edit it, or put it together, I don't like this shit. Hey, what's up you guys, it's me Luke and welcome back to another video, or if you're new here, welcome to my channel. If you are new here, I post commentary and reaction videos on anything on the internet that interests me, ranging from pop culture to internet culture and anything in between. So if any of that interests you, then be sure to go ahead and click that subscribe button and turn on the post notifications bell so that you never miss another upload from me. So if you are unaware, I am currently doing a commentary series on the Twilight films. I've already done the first two films, Twilight and New Moon. I'll link them down below for you to go ahead and check out if you have not already. And today we're going to be doing Eclipse. These videos are basically me revisiting these movies that came out over a decade ago and recapping what happens in the movie and giving my commentary on all of the interesting or cringy or strange things that happen throughout the movies. And it's really fun and you guys are enjoying it so far and so am I. So without further ado, let's get into it because I'm about to dive in to Eclipse. We have this opening scene which is giving very much horror film. There's this guy wandering the rainy streets of Seattle and he's being chased and stalked by a really fast creature. Oh, wonder who that could be. Eventually the creature catches up to him and bites him on the hand and he screams in pain. And boom, then we enter into Eclipse. So if you hadn't known what was going on, this would be very confusing, but it really sets the tone for the film being a bit more scarier than the other ones, I guess. So after the title sequence, Edward and Bella are in their little meadow, kissing and getting their groove on. And Edward is asking Bella to marry him again. She's asking him to change her. He says he'll only change her if she marries him. And Bella says that marriage is just a piece of paper. But Edward says where he's from, it's how he tells someone he loves them. And Bella says where she's from, at her age, that's how you tell someone you got knocked up. Oh, was this like predicting the future or what? Bella's talking about how 2 out of 3 marriages end in divorce, and Edward just says, I think you'll find the vampire to human divorce rate to be pretty low. Why? Because they'll kill you if you leave them. So then Bella says she has to get home by 4, and she's having a conversation with Charlie about basically how she's been grounded because of what happened in the last movie where she left for 3 days without telling Charlie. But Charlie also says that the reason he's grounding her or punishing her, not only because of that, is also because he wants her to have some distance from Edward. And she's all, Dad, Edward's in my life, just gotta accept it. And he's like, okay, well, maybe I'll be a bit more lenient with your punishment if you go and hang out with your other friends, like Jake. Once again, hitting home that Charlie is really all about that Team Jacob. Then we get a little voiceover from Bella saying that Jacob hadn't talked to her in weeks, and she wanted to fix things, but he just wouldn't give her a chance. So she goes to get in her truck to go visit him, but her truck won't start, and boom, Edward plops in her car, and she realizes he had done something to her truck. She's concerned for Bella's safety because the wolves, they just can't control themselves, and Bella's all, he won't hurt me, Edward. She says she has until graduation to see him, and then she'll be one of them, and Jacob will hate her forever, but Edward doesn't budge, and she doesn't get to go visit him. So next scene, we have Bella and Edward, and Jasper and Alice actually sitting at the humans table. So I think that's really interesting that they're kind of like merging tables. Can we just take a moment to recognize how ridiculous these colored contacts are? Like, y'all don't look remotely human at all with that in, and I don't get how you're blending in and nobody's saying anything. And Alice says how she wants to throw a graduation party, and Edward's all, another party, Alice, and she's all, it'll be fun, and Bella's all, that's what you said last time. Because the last time they had a party at her house, Jasper tried to fucking eat her. And just after this, Alice has a vision, and then we cut to Edward and Bella going to the police station, and there is an investigation going on for this boy named Riley who went missing, who, shocker, is the man in the beginning opening scene. Edward's talking about how there are unexplained killings and disappearances over in Seattle, and if it gets any worse, then the Volturi are gonna have to step in. But Bella's concerned that if they go to Seattle, they could come there to see that she's still human. But Edward says it won't get that far, and then tells her that she still needs to use those plane tickets that his parents bought her for her birthday. So it's a round trip ticket for Bella to go to Florida to visit her mom, and Bella says that she'll only go if Edward uses the companion ticket. And then Charlie's all like, oh, there's 2 tickets? That makes me really happy. So yeah, clearly Charlie is not a fan of Edward, and I honestly don't blame him. He's causing nothing but trouble, that boy. So Bella's in Florida visiting her mom with a little voiceover saying she just wanted to come there and see if her mom was all G in the hood. And her mom's talking about soaking in that vitamin D. So yeah, a little sun action. And we never get to see sun in this series, so it's really interesting. And Edward's just sitting inside because obviously if he comes outside, then the mother will see him sparkle in all his glory. So we find out that Bella's going to the University of Alaska. This, I don't know if it's true or not. I don't know if it's just like a ruse that the Cullens have said in order for them to get out of I almost said Mystic Falls. I've been rewatching The Vampire Diaries Forks without people questioning why they did that. They're just making her go to university far away. The mom says she's gonna miss Bella being so far away, but Bella said that the university has a really great science program. And the mom is all like, or a great Edward program. And the mom says something interesting. She says the way he watches you, it's like he's willing to take a bullet for you. And Bella says, is that a bad thing? Girl, yes it is. I'm sorry. Y'all have been dating a year. You're teenagers. Okay, I know he's a vampire, he's immortal, whatever. Let's just take it aside though. I don't feel like you should ever think that your partner would be willing to die for you. Let's all die for ourselves, okay? I don't know why Bella's all about people dying for each other. Like, it really ain't that deep, but apparently it is for her. Okay, so the Cullens are chasing after Victoria as well as the wolves because she's running around their land. When she jumps from one side to the other, she'll be like, getting chased by the wolves, or she'll be getting chased by the vampires. Because of the treaty, they can't go on each other's land. But at one point, Emmett goes to jump on the wolves' lands, and the wolves, like, get all mad at him, and Victoria gets away. This pissed me off because, like, y'all couldn't have just taken a beat from your treaty to get this bitch. If you just stepped on your land, y'all attacked her, you got her, and then he could just go back to his land and then whatever. Like, why couldn't you have just let that happen? Otherwise, you just let her go away because you can't get over your stupid pride. Another thing, they changed the Victoria for this, which pissed me the fuck off. I hate it when movies or shows change actors of like relevant characters. Takes me out of the story and I lose my reality. So this is a big reason as to why I did not enjoy Eclipse, because the main villains got completely changed into a different actor, and this actor just doesn't scare me. The other Victoria I found to be very frightening, so this disappointed me. Anyway, I digress. So then we cut to Edward and Bella in the car, and her saying that it was great seeing her mom and it was hard to say goodbye. But Edward said it doesn't have to be goodbye, and Bella's all, is that why you wanted me to go? Thought I was gonna change my mind. And he says I was hoping for that. So he still doesn't want her to become a vampire. Edward, I'm not gonna get into it because I really went in on you in the last video, but there is no other choice. You either don't be with her, or you be with her and she becomes a vampire. You can't really be together as a vampire and a human. It's not working. Look how many times the bitch almost dies. So then they get out the car and Mr. Jacob is there, and Jacob's asking Bella why she left town, and she says it's because she was visiting her mom, and Edward says he's here to still see if you're human. And then Jacob tells Edward that Bella deserves to know because the redhead is the one who's after her. Bella obviously realizes it's Victoria. And then Bella goes to go for a bike ride with Jake and have a bit of a chat in his barn. I don't know what the hell it is. Basically, she tells him that she's going to be turning into a vampire after graduation, and he gets really pissed, and she's all, you knew this was going to happen. And he's all, not in a month, before you've even had a chance to live, before he even had a chance to, and then he cuts himself off. It gets really mean and says that she'd be better off dead than being one of them. And she's all, I can't believe you said that. So yeah, pretty fucked up thing for him to say. So then we get this creepy scene of Riley, the guy from the beginning of the movie, in Bella's bedroom, and he's like smelling all of her things, and he goes up to Charlie laying on the couch and gets super close in his face, and you think something bad's gonna happen. And Bella gets home and Charlie walks up, so the guy had obviously like sped off or whatever. Pretty crazy. And then Charlie says, you know, Edward could at least respect meal times, and Bella says she was with Jake. So did she just like skip school that entire day? That's what I don't understand about like these teenagers in these movies like The Vampire Diaries or Twilight or whatever. Like, they just always be skipping school. God, skipping school was not easy when I was in school, so I don't understand how they all do it so much. But I digress. Clearly an education is not important to them. So then Edward shows up and says he's been super worried about Bella, and he almost broke the treaty to see if she was okay. But then he smells something, and Bella's all like, I know, I smell like a dog. And he's like, no, something's wrong. And then he goes in a room and says, someone's been in here. So then we cut to the Cullen house. They're talking about this person. They're saying it's a stranger. They didn't recognize the scent, wondering who it could be. Jasper gets back and says that the scent disappeared 5 miles after Bella's house. So I find it interesting, these vampires, they're kind of like animals. They can really like sniff people out. So then they start wondering if somebody is orchestrating something, and they're thinking it's Victoria, but Alice says she would have seen if she had made her decision. But then they're wondering maybe it's the Volturi. Alice says she hasn't seen the Volturi either because she's been watching their decisions, which I think is so cool. She can just like choose people whose decisions in future that she's gonna watch. That'd be so interesting. So then they say they're gonna take shifts guarding Bella's house, and Rosie leaves like another protection detail, so she pissed about it. And Bella's all like, no, she's right, you can't protect me. Watch for my dad and search for the intruder and for Victoria and keep yourself fed. But Edward's all, I'm not leaving you here defenseless. And she's all, well, I'm not gonna let you starve. With the animal blood situation, can't they just buy a bunch of raw meat and then just like squeeze, like wring out all the blood, or like put it in a blender? That makes me feel sick. Bella says she wouldn't be unprotected. Obviously she means Jake. And he says whoever it was left her stink behind. And he says he'll handle it from there, but Edward's all, we don't need you to handle anything. And he said, I could care less what you need. And he says, all right, we're done here. And he says, no, you're done here. It's just like so cringy. And then Bella's all, stop, I'm tired of this. From now on I'm like Switzerland. Oh, I love that. So basically the wolves and the Cullens are swapping between shifts, protecting Bella and Charlie in their house, which was nice because it's like kind of the first time that they've worked together. So then we get one of my favorite parts of the movie. Edward is dropping off Bella with Jacob so he can go and hunt. And Jacob's there by his car and he's shirtless. And Edward's like, doesn't he own a shirt? I love, like, why the fuck is he just shirtless? It's so bizarre. I guess so he can just turn into a wolf at a moment's notice without destroying a shirt, but he's still gonna destroy his pants. God, he must go through a lot of shorts. So then they kiss goodbye, and Bella tells him that maybe he should rush a little, because obviously she is gonna miss his juicy lips. Although, what would that be like? Because something I really enjoy about being intimate with another person is their warmth. And would that just be like kissing a fucking ice block? So then Jacob takes Bella to a council meeting, and he says that she'd be the first outsider to ever be there. So Billy Black's telling the story of the wolves, how they have magic in their blood, they transform into powerful wolves, but one day the warriors came across a creature. It looked like a man, but it was hard like stone, and cold as ice. But their warriors' sharp teeth finally tore it apart, but only fire could completely destroy it. And they lived in fear that there might be another cold one, and there was. This crazy bitch came to their village and tried killing all of the villagers. She was getting real intense, taking her vengeance out, and one of the chief was going to turn into a wolf to try and stop her, but she kind of got a hold of him, and his wife, in order to distract her, was very brave and stabbed herself to distract the vampire with the blood so that the wolf could rip off its head. What I don't understand is she like stabs herself in the gut. Bitch, you could have just like sliced your arm or something and you would have bled the same. I don't think you needed to die. It's a bit melodramatic for my taste. Something I think's interesting is Billy says over time their enemies disappeared, but one still remains, the cold ones. So does that mean that other supernatural creatures exist in the Twilight universe? Because, excuse me, what are they? And then he does the whole like dramatic thing where he's like, something is terrible is coming and we all have to be ready. And he kind of looks over towards Bella. And then it cuts to a scene of all of these newborn vampires feeding on all of these humans. It's really kind of grotesque and quite a shift from what we've seen in the previous movies. I feel like, I mean, this is directed by David Slade, who directs darker movies, so he really took that to the extreme, because this scene was, ugh, they're just like acting like animals feeding on people. They start fighting with each other, like one of them punches them in the head and their head kind of like a fucking porcelain vase just cracks and breaks. And we get this moment where Riley is talking to this girl who actually has that book written on her by Stephanie Meyer's, that short book called The Short Life of Britannia. I've never read it because it doesn't seem remotely interesting. Basically, he says to her, like, you need to find someone to drink, try not to get yourself killed, I'm gonna need numbers. So he is clearly starting an army. So the Cullens are watching the news in Seattle about all of the disappearances and murders, and Jasper's saying it takes more than one of their kind to cause that kind of damage. Edward says it's newborns. And Jasper tells us that the first few months of their change is when they're at their most uncontrollable and vicious, and they're insane with thirst. Carla says it's an army, and Jasper says they're created to fight someone. But Edward's all, we're the only clan closest to Seattle. But Carla says that if they don't stop this, the Volturi will, and he's surprised they'd let it go on this long. Me too. I don't understand why the Volturi hasn't intervened, because I thought their number one vampire rule is that you're not supposed to kill conspicuously and make a spectacle of yourself. But yet, this is what these people are doing, and they just seem to be letting it happen. Ugh, the Volturi confuse me. So then we cut to a scene where Charlie's at his kitchen table looking at the picture of Riley, and he says he disappeared over a year ago, but his parents haven't stopped searching. And Bella says, do you think that maybe they should just give up? He says he wouldn't if it were her. Bella is starting to kind of realize in this film what she's sacrificing by becoming a vampire and leaving town, is she's giving up her parents. And we got that moment with her mom, and now we're getting it with her dad. So it is quite sad. I mean, she made her choice. She starts talking to Edward about how she's gonna have to figure out what to tell people when she's not home for Christmas and why she won't visit and how they'll never see her again. And Edward just says, after a few decades, everyone you know will be dead. Well, way to comfort her, Edward. Bella asks Edward why he is so against her becoming like him. And he says it's because he knows the consequences of the decisions she's making. He's lived through it. And to let you suffer that? And then we come back to the soul stuff. We'll talk about it a lot more in Breaking Dawn. But essentially, Stephanie Meyer is a Mormon. So she puts a lot of her religious beliefs into these stories. Edward says some very dramatic lines lines here. He says, "You believe I have a soul, and I don't. But to risk yours, just for the sake of never having to lose you, that's the most selfish thing I'll ever do." Okay, whatever. And I love how Edward says something so profound and dramatic. And then all Bella says back is, "I thought you were afraid that I'd be different. You wouldn't want me when I'm not warm or I don't smell the same anymore." Which I think is so funny because, like, he's just been so profound and deep, and she's just like, "I'm not gonna be warm to cuddle with or smell yummy anymore." But then he says, "You'll always be my Bella." Oh, that's very cute though. So then Bella is with Jacob again. They're going for a little walk, and he decides to do something so fucking stupid. He's all like, "I just wanted to do this differently, but now I'm out of time. You need to hear the truth, Bella. Understand all your options. And you need to know that I'm in love with you." Oh, shocker. I never understand people who tell people that they love them when those people are in relationships. Back the fuck up. Back the fuck up. He says, "I want you to choose me instead of him." Jacob, Mr. Jakey Wakey Wakey, can you not see how infatuated Bella is with Edward? On what universe do you think that she's gonna choose you? That's another thing. Love triangle my ass, as if Jacob was ever even a fucking option. Bella's all like, "I thought you understand, I don't feel that way for you." And he says, "I don't buy it." And she's all, "What don't you buy? That's how I feel." Listen to her, Jacob. And then he invalidates what she just says and says, "You feel something for me. You just won't admit it." And this is his narrative throughout this entire movie. I'm not a violent person, but I could punch him. I could do a little something, something. I could fuck him up. Because the way he behaves in this movie is irritating. It just gets worse from here, ladies and gents. And then he gets real fucking dramatic and says he's not giving up. He's gonna fight for her until her heart stops beating. And she's all, "Well, then you're not gonna have to fight much longer." And he's all, "You're rushing into it because you're afraid you'll change your mind." Do you really think that the reason she is rushing into becoming a vampire is because she's afraid of her feelings for you? Does it have anything to do with the fact of the love she has for Edward? You're just delusional. And she just says, "No, I'm not. I know what I want." And he says, "You wouldn't have to change for me, Bella, or say goodbye to anyone. I can give you more than him. I mean, he probably can't even kiss you without hurting you." And then he grabs her hand and puts it on his heart and is all like, "Feel that? Flesh and bone and warmth." Can I just say that if you really have to put this much effort into convincing somebody they should be with you and they're just not really agreeing with you, give up. Jacob, you're kind of being pathetic. Get a grip. And then fucking kisses her. It's literally the most awkward kiss ever. She pulls back and punches him in the face and breaks her hand. So then here's a scene I love. Edward pushes into Jacob and says, "If you ever touch her against her will again." And then Bella's all like, "Don't do this here." Jacob's all like, "She's not sure what she wants." Edward's all, "Let me give you a clue. Wait for her to say the words." I mean, let's not applaud someone for doing the bare minimum, but I love that Edward is trying to get through Jacob's thick skull that Bella's a person who has choices and feelings, and those should be respected. Jacob is treating Bella like a piece of property, a toy that he wants, and I really dislike it. I know I'm being intense, but if any of you are Team Jacob, please come out of the woodworks and tell me. I still haven't seen one yet because I want to know where it comes from. I want to know how it could possibly possess you to want this man to be with her. So then Charlie comes to break up their fight and asks what's going on. And Jacob tells Charlie that he kissed Bella and she broke her hand punching his face. Eesh, I'm so proud of Bella. And he says, "Total misunderstanding." Actually, no, it was not a misunderstanding, Jacob. She flat out told you repeatedly that she does not have feelings for you and doesn't want to be with you, yet you still continue to kiss her. I'm gonna say it. That's assault right there. That punch was so deserved. So then she's at the Cullens' house and Carlisle's fixing up her sprained hand. She tells Emmett that she punched a werewolf in the face and he's all, "You're gonna be a tough little newborn one day." And she's all, "Tough enough to take you on." Is that like flirting? What's going on there? And then Rosalie gets pissed off and leaves. Emmett tells her not to worry about it, but Bella goes outside anyway to talk to Rosalie, and Rosalie's pissed. She's all, "Go blather to someone else about the joys of becoming a newborn." And Bella's all, "I don't understand why you hate me so much." And she's all, "I don't hate you. I don't particularly like you, but..." Sorry, I love Rosalie in this moment. She says, "Bella, I envy you. You have a choice. I didn't. None of us did, but you do, and you're choosing wrong." We get a little flashback. She's talking about how she was with this man. He was like the most eligible bachelor in town, and turns out he was actually a fucking sleazebag, and he's checking out all the women. And she was supposed to be betrothed to him, but one night she was walking home from a friend's place, and he was super drunk with a bunch of his friends, and would not leave her alone, and they were talking about undressing her and all that kind of nonsense. And turns out that they assaulted her and left her in a fucking alleyway bleeding to death, and Carlisle found her and saved her her life, and she says that she wished she would be dead instead. So, very depressing way to become a vampire. You know, Edward was just sick. Rosalie Little got assaulted. So I do feel bad for Rosalie, and I feel like we really get to humanize her, ironically, in this scene, because in the previous movie, she's just being a straight up bitch. But I guess now we know why. She says that she went and got revenge, and I fucking love this. She killed them all one at a time and left Royce for last so that he knew that she was coming, and she comes to kill him in a fucking wedding dress. Honestly, I love it, and she's all, I was a little theatrical back then. This scene is my favorite Rosalie scene in the whole series. She really slapped. It's really sad though, because she says things got better when she found Emmett, but she'll always be this, frozen, never moving forward. That's what she misses, are the possibilities. And then Bella says, I understand that's what you want, but there's nothing I'm ever gonna want more than Edward. And Rosalie says, you're wrong. There's one thing that you'll want more than anything. Blood. So then we cut to the newborn army. The vampires are running amok, killing a bunch of humans, and Riley's pissed. He starts screaming, saying, what did I say about keeping a low profile? Something's coming, bigger than all of us alone, and if you can't control yourselves, we're all going to die. And then we cut to the Volturi, and they're just standing there. One of them says they've already drawn too much attention. Others may question the Volturi's effectiveness. And Jane says, let them. And Alex says maybe they should consult with Aro, but Jane says Aro's thoughts are being watched. So we know that they know about Alice knowing about his future, knowing what he's going to do next. But she says that it's up to them to decide, and either they let them do what they were created for, or they end them. And she just says, decisions, decisions. And then the scene cuts. So I guess they ain't gonna fucking do anything. The Volturi in this movie are beyond useless, let me just say that. So then we have the graduation, and Jessica has a really cute speech that I'll skip. And we go to the party at the Cullens house. So Jacob shows up, and Bella's all like, what are you doing here? He's all, you invited me, remember? And she's all, was my right hook a little too subtle for you? That was me uninviting you. And then he apologizes and says he blamed it on the big inner animal thing, but he knows he was just being an ass. And then he goes ahead and gives her a little present, which is a little wolf bracelet. So it's cute. Alice goes ahead and has another vision. And can I just say how fucking cute she looks in this scene? So she has a vision of all the newborns sniffing Bella's jumper. So Alice tells them that the army is coming there for them and they'll be here in 4 days. And they ask who's behind it, and she says that she didn't see anyone she recognized, maybe one, and they realize they're talking about Riley. Jasper says whoever is doing this is staying out of the action, and they must be playing with the blind spots in Alice's vision. At this point, I don't know why they haven't realized it's Victoria, but we'll get there. So then Jacob comes in and is all, what damn army? They tell him about the newborns, and they said they were passing around Bella's scent, and Jacob says, we're in. So they're gonna fight with them, because he just wants to kill a bunch of vampires, essentially. Then we got a training montage. So the wolves are in their wolf form because they don't trust the vampires to be there in their human form, and Edward is translating because he can read their minds. They're asking what differs about the newborns, and Carla says that they're a lot stronger than them because their human blood still lingers in their tissues. I find that so interesting. And he says that their kind is never more physically powerful than in the first several months of their life, which I find interesting because other vampire shows, it's like the opposite. It's like as you get older, you get stronger. So that's super interesting. So Jasper is going to do the training, and we'll find out why soon. And he says that the first things to remember is never let them get their arms around you because they'll crush you instantly, and never go for the obvious kill. And then we get a little bit of a montage moment, which is super fun. I love the action scenes, but not much I can say about them. So then Bella has this little moment with Jacob where she's concerned, saying that we're going to get hurt and some people could get killed because of her. And she's like petting him on the head like he's a dog, which I just, I think it's funny. He's like a little pet. So after the training, she asks Jasper what she can do to help. And he says that her presence alone and her scent will draw in the newborns, and their hunting instinct will take over like crazy. And she asks him how he knows so much about this, and he said he didn't quite have the same upbringing as his adopted siblings, and shows his arms, which are covered in bite marks. Bella is like, those bites are like mine. Battle scars. These battle scars don't look like they're fading. Sorry. And he says that all the training that the Confederate army gave him was useless against the newborns. So he was a Confederate soldier. Interesting. So then we get a little backstory of Jasper. He is a Texas, and he's riding a little horse, cause he's a cowboy. Meets these 3 women, and one of them is named Maria. And Maria goes up to him and says, I'll help you be of great use to me. Bites him and turns him into a vampire. He says that a lot of vampires would create armies in the South for fighting over territory. Very animalistic. And he says that he was her second in command. His ability to control emotions served her well, and he trained her newborns. Since she never let them live beyond their their first year, it was his job to dispose of them. That's so sad. Imagine it being your job to just kill these people. And why can't they live after a year? And it's really sad because he says while he was killing them, he could felt everything they felt. And he says that he thought what he had with Maria was love, but he was actually just her puppet. And he didn't know there was another way till he found Alice. And then Alice and him have a kiss, which is like kind of like the first kiss I think we have of them. They didn't kiss in the previous movies. That was very cute. So then Bella has a dream of Maria whispering in Jasper's ear, and then it cuts between that and Victoria. And she wakes up and says, the newborn army, they're her puppets. Victoria. I'm sorry, what idiots would have not realized that this was Victoria's army? Who else would come after you guys? Fuck's sakes, you guys are dumb. But Edward just says Alice would have seen if she wanted to make an army. And Bella says, unless she's hiding behind them and letting someone else decide. And then we get a quick scene with Riley and Victoria, and she's biting someone to bring them into the army. But Edward basically wants Bella to hide because of Victoria. But Bella says she doesn't want to hide what they're out fighting. And Jasper said she could be of use. But Edward says with the wolves, it's an easy win and there's not going to be enough for them all to do. And I really like this round from Bella. She says either it's so dangerous that I have to hide or so easy that you're going to be sidelined. Which is it? I really like that because she'd be calling him out on his shit. I feel like over time Bella is really kind of getting a lot more agency within her, which I like. But Edward just says it's easy for us, dangerous for you. And she says I think it's dangerous for us to be apart. How many times do we have to prove that? So then Edward agrees that they'll stay together because the only way he can protect her is to be with her. So then Jasper's telling Jacob that they're going to lure the newborns with Bella's scent and they're bringing them into this like field and it needs to like end here because they don't want them to get to the town. And Bella says that her and Edward are going to go to a campsite, but even if Edward carries her, her scent will still be along the way. And Edward says to Jacob, your stench, however, is revolting. And Jacob says, dude, you really don't want to start comparing stinks. I'm so curious what they smell like. Can we get like a Jacob and Edward candle? Like, I just want to know, or is it you have to be a vampire or a werewolf to be able to smell it? But Bella basically says that what he means is that Jacob's scent will mask her scent. So they're basically going to test it out, and Jacob is running up the mountain with Bella, and he says to her, you're going to ask me to stay out of this fight too, or do you not care about my safety? Okay, Jacob, pipe down, bitch. Don't be manipulative. And she says, of course I do, but you would say no. But Jacob says he wouldn't have a choice anyway because he has to follow Sam's order ever since he let him be alpha male. And we find out that Jacob was going to be the leader of the pack, but he didn't even want to be in a pack to begin with, so he didn't go through with it. And then they start talking about choices again, and she's asking him to respect her choice, and he says that you can love more than one person at a time. Ugh. We're getting into polygamy now, Jacob? Come on. And he tells her that he can sense how she feels physically and that he makes her nervous. Maybe you make her nervous because she never knows when you're gonna fucking pull a move on her. And he starts leaning in and she's all, Jake. And he's all, I promise I wouldn't kiss you again until you asked. And she's all, you're gonna keep that promise for a while, Chief. So Jasper says that he couldn't pick up Bella's scent over the wolf stench, so that's good. And Alice is there with Charlie. They're laughing, having a bit of a moment. See, everyone likes Alice. She told Charlie that her and Bella were gonna have a sleepover at the house, but in fact, the family is actually going to go hunting, so Bella and Edward are going to have the house to themselves. And Bella goes inside and asks Charlie why he didn't get remarried, and he said he just didn't meet the right gal. And she says, well, did you give up on the whole institution of it? Do you think there's any value in it? And he says, yeah, I do think it has value when you're older. You definitely don't want to get married because you weren't, you know, careful. And then she's all like, what? And then he starts talking about, you know, if you're physically intimate, and he's asking her, are you guys taking precautions? And she says, Dad, don't worry about that. Edward's old school. And then he's all, what's that? Code for something? And she's like, oh my god, Dad, I'm a virgin. And he's like, it's honestly a really awkward, funny scene. I love Bella and Charlie's relationship. That was one of my favorite scenes in the movie, actually. And Charlie's like, after Bella leaves, I'm liking Edward a little bit more now. And then Edward gives Bella a bracelet saying he thinks it's only fair he'd be represented as well. And it's like a fucking diamond bracelet, whereas Jacob's is like a piece of wood. So then they go into Edward's room and Bella notices that there's a bed, and he said, I thought you might need one to sleep in. And she's all, I think an air mattress would have sufficed. So then Bella says to Edward that marriage is the only condition for him to change her, so she wants to negotiate her own condition, and she starts kissing him. Edward probably realizes that she's wanting to have sex, and he says no, and she says, but you wanted me to have every human experience, but he says not ones that risk killing you. He thinks it's too dangerous. Oh my god, what is he gonna do, fuck her to death? He says she'll just marry him if he tries. And then they start kissing, and this scene has My Love by Sia playing over it, and I really love the music in the scene. I think it's beautiful. So they're kissing and she starts trying to take off her clothes and he tells her to stop and she says, why do you want to do that part? And he says, not tonight, which is so sad for her. She feels like he doesn't want her. And he says, believe me, I want to. I just want to be married to you first. And she says, you really make me feel like some sort of villain trying to steal your virtue or something. And he says, it's not my virtue I'm concerned about. And she's all, are you kidding? And he says, it's one rule I just want to leave unbroken. So here we come again to Stephenie Meyer's Mormon beliefs, the whole like not having sex until you're married bullshit. How can you get married to someone if you don't even know what they're like in bed? What if they suck? And he says it may be too late for his soul, but he wants to protect hers. So what if she fucks you before you get married? She's gonna lose her soul. I cannot with the religious propaganda. And he basically just says it's because he's from a different era and things were a lot less complicated back then. If I had met you, I would have courted you. I would have taken you on chaperone strolls and iced tea on the porch. No. Although the iced tea sounds good, but the rest, fuck it. He said he might have stolen a kiss or two, but only after asking for her father's permission. Okay, well, Edward, get with the times, okay? It's 2010 when this came out, not fucking 1910. And then he goes ahead and gets down on one knee and presents Bella with a ring and tells her that it was his mother's. And he says, Isabella Swan, I promise to love you every moment forever. And would you do the extraordinary honor of marrying me? And she says, yes! Oh, and then he kisses her and picks her up. And it's like such a cute scene. I love it. Even though it kind of happened after something really cringy, but let's move on. So then we get Victoria and Riley, and he is really upset because she is not coming with them. And she says that it'll be a last minute decision. She tells him how it works. He says, you said the Cullens have powers. She tells him not to underestimate the Cullens because they could anticipate your every move with their powers. And Riley's confused, saying that they've been tearing up their territory and they haven't seen a single Cullen. And Victoria's like, you don't trust me? And he says, with my life, I'm just saying. And she's saying, I'm doing this for us so that we can feed without their retaliation. The scene was fucked up. Victoria trying to like seem all innocent. She says, I can't live in fear anymore, waiting for them to attack. Yeah, you're making that your bullshit reason when we all know the reason. It's because Edward killed, well, the Cullens killed James. But obviously she doesn't want Riley to know that because she's having this like fake romantic ruse with him. Ugh. Then they have a really weird kiss and he like bites her lip and she tells him that she loves him, which is like stupid because it's so obvious you're using him. And if you can't see that he's stupid, like the whole thing is just gross. So Bella is putting her little blood all over the trees, which I don't know how she ain't gonna get an infection from that. And he lifts up Bella's hand and she tells him not to make himself uncomfortable, but he says it doesn't bother her anymore. She says, since when? And he says, since I spent 24 hours thinking you were dead. And he asks her why she's not wearing her ring, and she says she doesn't want to risk losing it, but he says, or Jacob seeing it. Girl, we know what's up. Bella says that she wants to wait until after the fight, but Edward says, if you're having second thoughts, and she says, I'm not, I just want him to have a clear head. Which I think is really nice, because you don't want him to get himself killed. So then we see the creepy newborn army, and they jump into the ocean, and yeah, they basically, I guess, swim to Forks, which is just strange. So Jacob and Bella and Edward are at the top of a mountain. Jacob wants to stay with them because he says that he has a connection to the pack and he can tell them what is happening down in the battle. But somehow not one of these people thought about the weather, and there was a blizzard and Bella is freezing cold in the tent at night. And in order to warm her up, Jacob goes and lays in the sleeping bag with her because he says to Edward, face it, I'm harder than you. Which is so cringy. He says it would be faster if they took their clothes off. Honestly, he is such a sleazebag. So then Jacob and Edward kind of have their little heart to heart. Jacob tells Edward that he knows that Bella's in love with him, but that she's in love with him too, which I think is interesting because I don't recall Bella ever saying that. He says that she just won't admit it to herself. Jacob asks Edward if Bella chose him, would he kill him? And Edward says it's an intriguing idea, but no, he would not. He couldn't hurt her like that. And then Jacob says, so you'd turn her into a blood-sucking demon like you? Ugh, Ish, you are so intense. Calm down, pipe down. And Edward says that he tried to stop her, he left, and Jacob says that he gave up too quickly, and that if he had stayed away another 6 months, then Jacob could have made her happy. Ugh, Jacob thinks so highly of himself, it's so fucking gross. And Edward says he's considered that it might be better for Bella to be with Jacob because he knows that Jacob can protect her and he can give her a human life, but Bella doesn't want that, and Edward's not going to force her into anything ever again. Because the last time he tried, he almost killed them both. Yeah, I remember. You dramatic-ass teenagers. And Edward says that he's glad that Jacob's there, because as much as he'd like to kill him, he's glad that he can keep her warm. And maybe, if they weren't natural enemies and he wasn't trying to steal his reason for existing, he might actually like him. Oh! Edward, bold words here. Let's calm down. It is Jacob at the end of the day. Then Jacob says, if you weren't planning on sucking the life out of the girl I love, and then he just says no. So he can't even say he likes Edward. And Jacob says that Bella could still change her mind, and Edward says, then I'd let her go. See, that's where we come into a respect, because Edward respects Bella's choices. If Bella chose Jacob, he would let her go. However, currently Bella has chosen Edward, but Jacob can't let go. Let's think about that for a minute there. So they wake up the next morning, and for some reason Bella is wearing no warm clothing whatsoever. She apologizes for last night and says that it couldn't have been easy on Edward, and he said it definitely wouldn't have made the top 10 list of his favorite nights, and he tells her that every night he spent with her, and the number one is the night that she said she would marry him. And then he says, Mrs. Cullen, and she says, that's the 21st century, I at least want to hyphenate my name. Oh, look at her being a girl boss. And then Jacob shows up and says, you're marrying him? And Bella says to Edward, you knew he was listening. And he says he deserves to know. And then she chases off to Jacob, and Jacob is really pissed. He's all, I'm so done. He says he's gonna do something by going out there and killing something. And Bella says, no, you're not thinking clearly. Don't do that. And he says, maybe I'll get myself killed and make it simple for you. Aish. Ooh. It's very much giving, if you leave me, I'll kill myself. People who do that, who threaten to hurt themselves if you leave them, that's called abuse and manipulation. And don't put up with that bullshit. Their choices are not your responsibility. Jacob, you want to go out there and get yourself killed? Be my guest, bitch. I don't like you anyway. So Bella begs him to stay. Jacob says, give me one good reason. And she says, because I don't want to lose you. And he says, it's not good enough. She says, because you're too important. And he says, still not good enough. Oh, you're a fucking baby. You're not getting what you want. You're throwing a motherfucking tantrum, you piece of shit little boy. Sorry, I lost myself a little bit there. So then she screams, Jacob, kiss me. I'm asking you to kiss me. And then he kisses her. They put on this like dramatic music and try and make it seem beautiful. I don't like it. Doesn't matter which way you swing it, edit it, or put it together. I don't like this shit. And he says that should have been our first kiss. Really? How romantic that you had to emotionally abuse and manipulate her to get what you want. Oh, piece of shit. So Jacob leaves and Bella goes back to Edward. Turns out Edward heard the whole thing. He says to Bella, you love him. And Bella says, I love you more. Okay, good to know. Let's not pretend that it's not a platonic love though. I don't ever get the vibe that Bella has any romantic interest in Jacob. So then we go to the battle. The newborns have finally arrived. They're getting their heads ripped off by the wolves and the vamps. It's really epic. This is kind of like our first big fight scene with the Cullens, so I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Carla and Esme see Brie Tanner, that girl, and they see how she's kind of surrendered, so they kind of leave her be. And then Edward says that she's close. I can hear her thoughts, meaning Victoria. He says she knew they weren't there because she caught his scent. Damn, Edward, maybe you shouldn't have gone up there. So Riley and Victoria both show up, and Edward is talking to Riley, trying to get him to understand that Victoria is just using him and that she doesn't love him, and she's just trying to use him and the rest of the newborns to avenge her true mate James. But she basically is like, no, Riley, don't trust Edward, don't listen to his mind tricks, I still love you. But then when a wolf goes and bites off of his arm, Victoria tries to run away, so how much can she really care about him? And then Edward has his whole spiel. You want her. You want me to feel the pain you felt when I killed James, when I tore him to pieces, when I turned him into ash, into nothing. And she starts growling like the vamps do, and she real pissed. So she runs up to Edward, attacks him. She tries to get to Bella, but then Edward throws her back, and Victoria's about to rip off his head, and Bella's freaking out. So she scrambles around on the ground, finds a rock, and slice opens her wrist because she remembers the story of that woman from the village who saved her husband when she stabbed herself. Glad Bella went to, choose for a little slice instead of a stabbing. Smart move. So she's bleeding, and obviously Edward isn't affected by her blood anymore after thinking she'd been dead. So Riley and Victoria are distracted. They smell, they hiss, their animalistic vibe kicks in. It allows Edward to pull through and get the upper hand. Riley gets taken by Seth. He's screaming out for Victoria, and Victoria does not give a shit. I think Riley finally realized that she was just using him. So she runs towards Edward, trying to kill him, and Edward grabs her in the headlock, trying to rip off her head, and then he bites her in the neck, and her head falls off. That must have been some really intense bite. And then he lights the bitch on fire. That is the end of the Laurent James Victoria drama fiasco. Somehow I feel like the OG Victoria would have given us a bit more of a fight. Yes, I'm bitter. Okay, so the battle is over. They've killed all the newborns, but oops, there's one left. And Leah goes in wolf form to attack. However, she's going for the obvious kill, like Jasper told you not to. And the newborn puts his arms around her, about to crush her to death. And Jacob goes to save him, but instead, Jacob gets crushed. And you hear the bones crunching, and he turns into human form, which, side note, he's just laid there naked and everybody can see his schlong. I don't know why that's funny to me. I'm so mature. And then Edward says, Jacob, hold on. Carla will take care of you. Carla says that all the bones on the right half of his body are shattered and he needs to set the bones before his accelerated healing kicks in. So basically, if the bones aren't set into the correct place, then because of his wolf gene, they will heal incorrectly. Interesting. Did not know that. The wolves go and take him back and Alice says they're coming. So it looks like the Volturi decided to show up. You're a bit too late. You know, it's just a little too late. So Jane says, I've never seen a coven escape an assault of this magnitude intact. Carla says they were lucky, and she says, I doubt that. Oh, because they don't want her to know they're working with wolves. I get it now. She says, it appears we missed an entertaining fight. It's not often we're rendered unnecessary. And Edward says, if you had arrived half an hour ago, you may have fulfilled your purpose. Boom! Clap the sound of my heart. Mic drop. Jane just says pity with those red devilish eyes and says, you missed one. So pointing to Britannia, but Carla says, we offered her asylum in exchange for her surrender. And she says, that wasn't yours to offer. She starts questioning the girl. Why did you come? Who created you? She doesn't even give the girl an opportunity to answer. She just starts putting her pain power on her. And Esme says, you don't need to do that. She'll tell you anything you want to know. And Jane says, I know. So you just like inflicting pain on people. So the girl basically says, Riley wouldn't tell us. He said our thoughts weren't safe. And they're talking about Victoria, and Edward says, perhaps you knew her. And Carla says, Edward, if the Volturi had a knowledge of Victoria, they would have stopped her. Isn't that right, Jane? And she says, of course. Bitch, why you always lying? Why the fuck you lying? Goddamn, Jane. You guys let this all happen. So then she tells Felix to go end her, and Esme says she didn't know what she was doing. We'll take responsibility for her. Carla says, give her a chance. And Jane says, the Volturi don't give second chances. Keep that in mind. Caius will be interested to know she's still human. And Bella says, the date is set. Also dramatic. I love it. Jane says, take care of that, Felix. I'd like to go home. And she smiles as the girl gets her body ripped in half. Jane's a wicked kind of bitch. So then we cut to Jacob's house and Bella goes to see him and Carla's been in there re-breaking his bones to put them back into place. And we get a little handshake between Carlisle and Billy Black. We are really seeing the wolves and the vampires starting to actually respect each other. Stop the violence, you know? So Bella goes to visit Jacob. He's sweaty fucking mess, broken bones. Can't blame him. So this scene's kind of like a bit more emotional, so I'm gonna do a little reenactment for you with my voice. I was worried about you. You were worried about me? I guessed Edward would have read my thoughts. Was he hard on you? He wasn't even mad at me. Or you. He's better than I thought. He's not playing a game. He's not as perfect as you think. I know who he is. Well, at least I know I did everything I could. It wasn't easy making you admit your feelings for me. I only fought them because I knew they wouldn't change anything. I'm exactly right for you, Bella. It's as easy as breathing with me. You know I love you. You know how much I wish it was enough. I need some time. But I'll always be waiting until my heart stops beating. Maybe even then. So she actually, I guess, admits to having feelings for him and says she just didn't want to tell him because it wouldn't change anything. So I guess maybe she does have romantic feelings for him, but it's like nothing compared to Edward. Interesting. I also don't get how she would. Jacob's a bit of a prick. And then kind of like a full circle moment, we get Bella and Edward back in the meadow. They're talking about their wedding plans. Bella's saying how she wants to do it a month before her birthday because she doesn't need to be another year older than him. And she's saying that Alice is going to be planning the wedding. And Edward says, you're trying to make everyone else happy, but you're already giving up too much. And she says, this wasn't a choice between you and Jacob. It was between who I should be and who I am. I've always felt out of step. I've never felt normal because I'm not normal. I don't want to be. I've had to face death and loss and pain in your world, but I've also never felt stronger, more myself, because it's my world too. It's where I belong. And I want to tie myself to you in every humanly way possible. Starting with a wedding. Actually, something a little more difficult first. We have to tell Charlie. It's highly dangerous. It's a good thing you're bulletproof. I'm gonna need that ring. And then he puts the ring on her finger. They kiss, and that is the end of the movie, ladies and gentlemen. Can I get an amen? Amen. Look, I'm gonna just say this. I feel like there was a bit of a crackhead energy throughout this video, and I do apologize, but I felt like I needed to do that for myself to be able to get through, because believe it or not, Eclipse is actually my least favorite movie in the series. I feel like it was this weird plot that was kind of, yes, part of the movie because it was with Victoria, but I just don't care about like a newborn army. Like this movie was just like, what the fuck? You know, I always thought New Moon was my least favorite, but I actually really enjoyed my New Moon video. This, not gonna lie, was a bit of a struggle for me. The storyline with Edward and the no sex before marriage, the whole cell thing, all of that kind of stuff is giving religious propaganda. I feel like Jacob is like really disrespectful actually towards Bella, not respecting her choices that she deserves as a woman who's allowed to make her own decisions. She's not your property. You don't get to just have her because you want her. She's already with someone else. Respect her. Oh, that's it. I'm excited for Breaking Dawns. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Comment down below your thoughts. Make sure you are subscribed and have the bell on so you don't miss the next two videos. And all my social media is linked down below, as well as my podcast merch, second channel, and Cameo. And without further ado, thank you so much for watching this video, guys. I'll see you in my next one, and I hope that you have a great day or night wherever you're in the world. Bye!